Not saved by works. Galatians chapter 2. Let's continue. In Galatians chapter 2, Paul goes into detail about his second visit to Jerusalem, and this time he was given revelation to go and tackle the issue of the division between the Jew and Gentile believer, between the circumcised and uncircumcised. Galatians chapter 2, verse 2. And I went up by revelation, and communicated unto them that gospel which I preach among the Gentiles, and that is, that salvation comes by faith in Yeshua Messiah. Lest by any means I should run or had run in vain. In the last part of verse 2, Paul is saying he didn't want this legalistic division to continue growing, lest otherwise all of his work for the kingdom of Yeshua would have been done in vain. Galatians chapter 2, verse 3. But neither Titus, who was with me, being a Greek, was compelled to be circumcised. Paul is not saying that the commandment of circumcision is now abolished, as some Christians might claim. But instead, it was about not feeling compelled to be circumcised in order to feel saved, in order to feel justified, to know you're included in Israel and the covenant. And this is key in order to understand Galatians. The context is all about what gets you saved or justified. Circumcision or faith? To please men or to please Yahweh? Thus Titus, a Greek, did not feel the need to be circumcised in order to know he's saved or justified by faith in Yeshua Messiah. This belief of needing to be circumcised to be saved or justified is considered a false gospel, and thus the person who says this, you must be circumcised to be saved, can be considered a false brother in Messiah. Galatians chapter 2, verse 4. And that because of false brethren unawares brought in, who came in privately to spy out our liberty, which we have in Messiah Yeshua, that they might bring us into bondage. So if anyone comes to you and says, you're not truly saved until you get circumcised, or you're not truly saved until you get baptized, or you're not truly saved until you join my specific denomination, then just dust off your feet from among them, for you know that you are saved by faith in Yeshua Messiah, and not of anything else. Now the division in the man-made wall between the Jew and Gentile believers was strong. This was even spotted among the disciples. Paul saw Peter actually avoiding Gentile believers in order to not disappoint his fellow Jewish brothers and friends and peers. Galatians chapter 2, verse 11 and 12. But when Cephas, that is Peter, came to Antioch, I opposed him to his face, because he stood condemned. For before certain men came from James, he, that is Peter, was eating with the Gentiles. But when they, that is James and his men, came, Peter drew back and separated himself from the Gentiles, fearing the circumcision party, the Jews. Paul was calling out Peter and rebuked him for being a hypocrite, accepting the Gentile brothers when no one was around. But once the other Jews showed up, Peter distanced himself from the Gentile believers. If there was one verse that could summarize the entire letter of Galatians, it would be Galatians chapter 2, verse 16, which says, knowing that a man is not justified, that is saved, by the works of the law, but by the faith of Yeshua Messiah. Even we have believed in Yeshua Messiah, that we might be justified by the faith of Messiah, and not by the works of the law. For by the works of the law shall no flesh be justified. Paul is saying we are not saved by circumcision, but by faith in Yeshua. Paul is not saying circumcision is now abolished, but that circumcision or any work of the law simply cannot save you, and it was never given for salvation. For Paul continues to say that if the law could save us, then Yeshua died for nothing. Galatians chapter 2, verse 21. I do not nullify the grace of Elohim, for if righteousness were through the law, then Messiah died for no purpose. Please leave your comments below on what you've learned so far with our Galatians series. Thank you and shalom.